Big one. F3.
Pursuant to Section 841411 of the Nebraska statutes, the next regular meeting of the Board of Education of Douglas County School District 0001 and the Board of Educational Service Unit Number 19 will be held on Monday, November 4th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. in the Board Meeting Room of the Teacher Administrative Center, 3215 Cummings Street. The agenda will be kept current and available for public inspection in the Office of the Secretary of the Board of Education at the Administrative Building during regular working hours. Pursuant to Section 8414.12 of the Nebraska statutes, the public is hereby informed that a current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted in the board meeting room on the north wall. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Dr. Holman will lead us in our OPS vision and mission statement.
Our vision, every student, every day, prepare for success. And our mission, Omaha Public Schools prepares all students to excel in career and life.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. Mr. Ray, roll call, please.
Cassidy,
Here.
Godding,
Present.
Holman,
Here.
Cracky, Perlman,
Here.
Ryan,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Snipe,
Present.
Snow.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. Moving on to our school spotlight with Jeremy Maskell.
Good evening, President Snow, members of the board, and Superintendent Logan. For our OPS Proud Spotlight, we are very happy to highlight a partnership focused on providing service learning opportunities for students at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, and Omaha Public Schools that recently received recognition in the fall. The initiative was awarded the Excellence in Community Partner Engagement Award by Engagement Scholarship Consortium. To speak about the long-standing partnership that connects Blackburn High School students with the Adams Park Senior Center is Blackburn Program Director, Ms. Jody Pesic.
Well, as he said, I'm the proud program director, Jody Pesic, of Blackburn Alternative Program and the Secondary Success Program. And for today, I'd like to thank the Board of Education and the superintendent for welcoming Blackburn into the house. We are so proud of the multiple service learning projects that our students do at Blackburn. I'm going to get this started. Now, it worked for Mr. Ray. Can someone come up here and do this while I'm talking? Thank you. Again, tonight, though, I'm here to highlight a very special, our longest running project, which is Food for Thought. Over 10 years ago, a need in our community was identified just as we were beginning to develop the Blackburn Culinary Arts Program. The near North Omaha Senior Center was changing their daily meeting site to Adams Park and would be losing their NOA lunch program. We came together with the Adams Park Director, senior citizens, and the UNO Service Learning Academy to see how we could help, while giving our students valuable culinary experience and providing opportunities for our students to build relationships with our community members. Service learning is a powerful education practice that is used to attain better student educational outcomes through utilization of experiential learning and service to the community. The Food for Thought P16 Service Learning Project, a collaboration between UNO social work students, Blackburn Alternative Culinary Arts students, and Adams Park Community Center seniors, is in its 10th year of preparing and serving a weekly meal to senior citizens. Twice a year, the seniors come to our house, and they come for a fall harvest and a spring fling to see our students in action at Blackburn. These celebrations are all well attended with over 100 meals served at each event. In 10 years of service, more than 13,600 meals have been prepared and served by more than 100 Blackburn and UNO students. This project promotes understanding of diversity and mutual respect among all participants. It helps participants recognize and overcome stereotypes. It allows high school students and community elders to build bridges of understanding of each other. Culinary arts standards are also met through this project. One standard in particular is Standard 3, which reads, identify a customer need and create a product, food, or service to meet that need. Analyze the customer experience by listening to feedback provided by the customer. The students are all involved each semester in our reflection meetings with community members, and they participate in planning for each new session. One senior center objective that is clearly being met with this project is to increase intergenerational understanding and engagement, to serve as positive role models for citizens, for young citizens. Those positive and strong relationships developed between our students and the Adams Park seniors have been invaluable and mutually beneficial. We hope to continue the Food for Thought program for many years to come. So, thank you. I have at least a couple minutes left. I'd like to acknowledge some of those who are in the audience here to support our Blackburn culinary students. Blackburn staff members and our students' families. We have Sean Peoples, who is the director of the Adams Park Community Center, and Chuck Williamson, president of the Adams Park Senior Center, and Mr. Parker Moore. We have Loyola Jones, who's from the Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging. We are lucky to have with us the UNO Service Learning Director, Julie Dierberger, who has the award that we all won, and Latrina Hall, who is a P16 coordinator, as well as the original professor connected with this project, Dr. Holly. We have Ms. Nelson, who is our Blackburn Service Coordinator. But again, all of this couldn't happen without the people who are going to join me up here right now. Please join me in welcoming Blackburn Culinary Arts teacher, Ms. Stacy Christensen. Beverly Middleton, who provides amazing essential support in the classroom. And some amazing students who were able to join us this evening, Ms. Krenisha Thompson and Destiny Cooper. Okay. At this, would you like to shake hands, maybe? Okay, go on through. Does it matter where we start?
Oh,
Start over?
One second.
Oh, no, wait. Okay, I was told to go.
Do you have anything else from your side? Sorry. Okay, so...
Couldn't be more proud.
Yep, I know. We're very excited. I want to open up to the board
Sure.
if you guys have any questions
Questions?
for the staff as well as the students for receiving this amazing recognition. Mrs. Godding.
So I want to ask the students, what's your favorite type of food to prepare? What is the thing you love to do the most, and you think you're really good at it?
Shrimp fettuccine.
Fettuccine?
Shrimp fettuccine.
I love pasta. You like all foods? Very good.
Ms. Ryan.
What is the
I guess, most impactful thing you've learned about cooking, and how has that like kind of you've implemented it in your life?
I mean, I cook at home, so where the mic?
Into the mic.
Mic right here, honey.
I cook at home, so I kind of already know everything.
She's amazing.
I got this too, if you liked. No, I'm good.
Awesome. Ms. Cassidy.
Thank you. So, ladies, I want to know, first of all, what year you are at Blackburn.
I'm a junior.
You're a junior?
I'm a junior.
Okay. Are either of you thinking of possibly going on to culinary arts?
No.
No? You don't like cooking enough? You'll just be lifelong cookers at home,
We still have
probably.
one more year.
There you go.
Dr. Holman.
Thank you. Can you tell me what is the most rewarding part of your experience?
The people. I feel like I like going to the Adams Center. Oh. The people. I like want to visit the people. I think that's the best part.
Excellent. You have to say something in the microphone.
I'm loud, so I don't need that. Like she said, I like elders. I'm around a lot of elders, so I just like helping them.
Nice, thank you.
Pay it forward. I appreciate that. I have a couple questions. The first, for the director, Jody, when's the fall event for this year?
I know we have the date, Ms. Nelson? November 20th.
November 20th.
And we will be sending out formal invitations for the entire board and the superintendent to join us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then the second question I have is the award. Have you guys already received the award from UNO, or?
It is here.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Julie
Did I jump
Deerberger,
the gun
the
on that?
director of service learning, has it, and she brought it to the event so we could take pictures with it.
Oh, my goodness. Come on up. Now, do you have something to say for the students or to present it, or? Nope.
Nothing formal, just we're really proud of our partnership with OPS at UNO. And Melissa Comine and I, we accepted the award in Denver last week together.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. So you guys have made us so proud with OPS, and we're so OPS proud for you. I appreciate people that love to be in the kitchen. I can burn eggs any day. So we would love to shake your hand and give you a small token of our appreciation, and then after that, we'll all join in the middle and take a photo with you, UNO, as well as the staff at Blackburn. Thank you.
All right. Caitlin, Mr. Lee. Mr. Humphries.
And actually, also, for the photo, can we also have the partnership with Adams Community Center, as well as the staff from Blackburn join us, please?
Okay, on the edges, everybody scoot. One scooch in, and we should be good. There we go. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Take one more. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you.
Oh, yeah, oh, no. Yeah.
All right. Just a quick note, we have some UNMC students in the back of the room for a class project. Please wave, ladies. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to Omaha Public Schools. Oh, we have gentlemen from UNMC too as well. Everybody from UNMC, put your hands in the air, wave them like you just don't, I'm kidding. All right. Moving on to Board and Superintendent Communications, Dr. Logan.
Good evening, President Snow and members of the board and those here in attendance and those watching via streaming. First of all, I want to recognize Mr. and Mrs. Preston Love, who are in the audience. I had the opportunity to spend some time with them in Montgomery, Alabama this summer, and I really want to thank them for their hospitality and for welcoming me on that wonderful civil rights tour in Montgomery. It was profoundly impactful for me personally and professionally, and personally, I really appreciate your warm and kind heart. So I wanted to make sure that I recognize you today. I have a lot of good news today. I want to begin by sharing an email sent to me over the weekend from a parent of a student at Hartman Elementary School. The parent praised special education teachers, Ms. Sarah, Ms. Gertis, and Ms. Fitch at the school for their keen awareness and paying attention to something that needed to be brought to the adults' attention and taking care of their daughter. They wanted to tell me that their team took the initiative to look and listen and report what they saw. They kept our daughter calm and happy. They have no idea how much their attention means to us. To Principal Shelley Burkhart and the Hartman Elementary team, your actions exemplify excellence. You reinforce the desires of every parent who brings their child or children to us every morning. Our parents want to be rest assured their children are in a safe and loving place where they're going to be cared for. Furthermore, they want to know their children are known, loved, and inspired. I appreciate that shout out too. Thank you for your care in handling this and for the work you do daily. So I want to make sure that we recognized Hartman. Last week, student transportations last week, or in the coming up, inclement weather is just around the corner. Families should receive the letters from student transportation for the winter transportation letters. The letter outlines district practices during inclement weather season. We encourage families to ensure children are dressed warm during winter weather months, and we want to remind parents that if the bus has not arrived within the 15-minute window of the scheduled pickup time in the morning, students should return home and student transportation should be contacted. Our inclement weather team actively monitors weather conditions throughout the winter. Should we need to cancel school due to weather, we will work hard to make those announcements prior to 5:30 in the morning in question. In instances where we have enough information the night before, we will make those announcements prior to morning to allow families as much time as possible. During the next board meeting, I will talk a little bit about some alternate schedules that we will be able to use so that we don't have to just cancel school. We have a couple of other alternatives. I'm looking forward to that. The last week at UNO, we had Career Exploration Day. We had 4,000 eighth graders in the same spot to celebrate strong attendance, school spirit, and encourage them to begin thinking about what's next for them with regard to their high school selection, career goals, and the opportunities ahead. I'd like to thank Ms. Katie Heck-Weber, I hope I got that right, Katie, for your leadership of that initiative and all the folks in your division who supported that, and thanks for the candy this morning, I appreciate it. We know freshman year is one of the most important predictors of high school graduation, and we want to ensure our students are thinking about their options well in advance. Thank you for your enthusiasm and your strength that you bring to your new role. Last Wednesday, as well, Bryan Middle School and the Boys and Girls Club of the Midlands held a dedication ceremony for the newly renovated Bryan Middle School and the new Henry Davis Boys and Girls Club. Bryan Middle and the Boys and Girls Club partner on the project. I'd like to thank board member Kimra Snipe for attending the event and representing the Board of Education. The club will share school space such as the gymnasium and the pool. We appreciate the support from taxpayers for the $17 million renovation of Bryan Middle School. The 14,000 square foot Boys and Girls Club will serve 5th through 12th graders. The club includes a 1,900 square foot youth center, a 1,650 square foot teen center, a new gym, innovation center, and an outdoor patio. It is a really super, super cool space. So thank you to our partners, to include Ivan Gilreath, the Chief Executive Officer of the Boys and Girls Club of the Midlands. This is the final week of our parent-teacher conferences. Elementary school parents, you can monitor your students' current progress through our parent portal. Check with your child's school for information on how to access the portal. We have also shared some tips on our social media sites to help our parents make the most of discussions before, during, and after parent-teacher conferences. Want to also recognize several schools that do student-led conferences where the students actually lead the conference along with their parents. It's an excellent way to involve students in their own learning and for them to take responsibility for their learning. Tomorrow is our pre-ACT day. There's no school tomorrow for freshmen, juniors, and seniors, but tomorrow all of our sophomores will be at our schools for the pre-ACT day. They will have the opportunity to pre-test in English, math, reading, and science. Schools use these results to assess current achievement levels and project future ACT scores for students who take the test. I want to recognize Mrs. Susan Christopherson and Ms. Fatima Fulmore for working with all of our high school principals as well to make sure that students don't just take the assessment, but after the assessment that they have follow-up activities and learn how to have agency about how to use the tools that they get from ACT to improve their performance. Really great work on behalf of those two ladies. Students who receive transportation will ride the school bus as normal tomorrow. Parents with questions, please, I would say, email your child's principal, but I'm pretty sure that all those questions have been answered. And a last kudo to Indian Hill Elementary School teacher Melissa Satzgo, who received a Presidential Excellence Award for Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Education. Ms. Satzgo, you make all of us OPS proud. This concludes my remarks. President's now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Logan. Board members, Ms. Snipe.
I just wanted very briefly to also piggyback on what Dr. Logan said and thanking the voters. As someone who attended Bryan Middle and Bryan High School, I was really pleased to be a part of the dedication, and I really enjoyed witnessing the event. As someone who is a community advocate, I'm a large fan of partnership and collaboration, and that's what that looks like. So now the young people at Bryan will have someplace safe to be after school, in a place where they can cultivate and really nurture their own talents in a really fun, like Dr. Logan said, really cool space. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you.
Dr. Holman.
So this weekend I celebrated, not to age myself, but celebrated my 25th high school reunion at Northwest High School. And go Huskies. So several of us decided to donate some money to provide and serve dinner to the football team on Friday. And myself and a classmate of mine got dinner from Mangia's and delivered it to the school. And as we're walking through the school, it was right at dismissal time. And so we're walking through with these huge pasta boxes and all the kids were towering over us because they're huge nowadays, and trying to maneuver through the crowd of hundreds of kids. And a young man came over and was like, "Excuse me, ma'am, can I help you carry these things?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, I'm not a ma'am." And then that was my first thought. And then I was like, "Okay, yeah, thank you very much." And I thought, oh my gosh, how polite of him to come over and offer, to help. And so he's carrying all this stuff for us to the cafeteria. And then he's like, "Is there anything else in your car that I can help you get?" And I was like, "Yes, thank you so much." And so he followed us out to gather some more things. And as we're walking out, I was explaining, his name is Taj, by the way, and I was explaining to him that it was our high school reunion that week. And he was like, "Yeah, class of 86, right?" And I'm like, "What? Not class of 86? He's like, "Oh, they must have messed up on the intercom." And I was like, "Yeah, they did." But so anyhow, he's helping us carry all this stuff inside, and we get in, and then other football players are finally arriving into the cafeteria, and they're like, "Miss, is there anything we can help you do, ma'am? Can we help you do this? Can we do this? Can we do this?" And we were just like overjoyed with the amount of the manners that they had, how respectful they were, and just them wanting to help us do everything. And the football team, there's probably about 50 of them, so the team is not very big at all, and they're all very, very young, and just to see, we were very pleased just to be able to be a part of serving them dinner and providing that for them. And they sat down for their family dinner, and the coach was there, and he was giving them their encouraging words before the game and everything, and they were like, yes, coach, yes, coach, yes, coach, you know, getting pumped up for the game and everything. And so fast forward to game time. Unfortunately, it was not the expected outcome. They lost 78-7, but
They had heart.
they kept going, and they kept going to get that one touchdown. And so we were just very proud of them and just happy to be there to support them, and they did not give up. That's a hard loss, a very, very, very hard loss. But I will say that the other team, huge guys, they probably like 100 football players, and yeah, not very good at all. But you know, it just made you, like the mother in me came out, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just feel so terrible for them. You know, they were such nice kids, but you know, it was really great just to be there to support them, although it wasn't the outcome that we wanted. But I'm just happy to be there and just to see them want to keep trying to push through, even though they were getting demolished. And that's a very, very hard loss, just to continuously see the other team score, you know, when you don't have any points. So good for them, and they did score their first and only touchdown in the last quarter. So that lets you know how hard they tried.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. When I played football in high school, as long as you can play all the way to the end of the game, that's all that mattered. So
And they
played
did.
to the end of the game, so that's
And
all that
they
mattered.
did.
Never give up.
Next year, though.
Any other board members' comments? Just an update. Fullerton birthday party at Fullerton Elementary School birthday party, October 29th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. If you guys are available to stop by, I hear it's going to be pretty good. So, moving on to consent agenda. Actually, public comment. I apologize. We have one speaker. The board has adopted policy 8346, which provides public comment for a period of 1 hour. That same policy limits individual speakers to a maximum of 5 minutes. We ask that you respect that time limit. Mr. Ray will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining and when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you are in need of an interpreter, please let Mr. Ray know, and one will be provided for you. If the subject of your public comment is related to a particular student or staff member, we ask that you not mention the student or staff member by name and instead provide that information to Mr. Ray. He will assist us in looking those types of details for you. If you do not get an opportunity to speak and would like to submit any written commentary, please provide it to Mr. Ray. He will make sure each board member gets a copy. As a reminder, we ask that you please spell your name and state your address before you begin your public comment. It is now 6:59. Our only speaker is Carrie Kemp.
Hello? Testing. Hey, so thank you for having me, everyone. My name is Kyrie Kemp. And so I'm a director at Building Block. It's a nonprofit that focuses on college and career development. I'm here with my colleague, Weston, who joined me, and we are from California. Not from California Street, but from California State. And what happened is, after college, had a heavy career in consulting, and really found my passion for helping high school students develop so that they can get further ahead and be even better than I was, because I had a hard time growing up, and I wanted to provide that pathway to many of these disenfranchised students and minorities. And so I'd say very soon after starting the nonprofit, we found that high school students have a very hard time finding service learning opportunities and work-based learning opportunities. As soon as I came here and I saw that in the school recognition portion of the meeting today, you guys had a service learning call out, and that made me very happy, because that means that you guys really take pride in that and you're pushing those efforts. And so me and Weston, we want to really help and complement that in any way. So going backward a little bit, back in May, we reached out to Burke High School, And so we connected with them to try to find a way to plug in and assist. And what we've created was a software system so that students can go in and find the opportunities to volunteer, to intern in the community. And so think of it as a directory. It's an aggregated platform for high school students, so they don't have to sort through college opportunities. They don't have to sort through opportunities that they're ineligible for. And so in that way, we've seen a really strong kind of passion and appreciation for what we do since we've rolled it out. And we actually have this certificate that we're going to present to Burke High School tomorrow. So with that, I guess what we wanted to do was, it's very hard to see the community, even though we've connected with Habitat for Humanity, the Omaha Public Library, and different institutions around here. We wanted to see for our own eyes and really show that commitment of ours to plug in and help out and support what you guys are doing. So in that way, we came, and we still have a few stops tomorrow. But I wanted to again thank you guys for having us, and we're very excited to continue working with you guys. So
Thank you.
that's all. If there are any questions, I can take those too, but if not, I'd love to maybe take a photo with you guys, and I'll probably take another photo tomorrow. So I don't know when would be best, if you guys are open to that. But
So during public comment, we don't take questions, or we listen, and our entire objective of public comment is to listen, but if you stand from there, you can still take a photo with us.
Okay.
That works. I mean,
okay.
Is he still within his minute, Mr. Ray? All right, you're still within your minute. You can do
My
it.
limit? Okay. I don't want to block you. Yeah, if you could stand, that would be great. Oh.
We got it?
That is a great idea.
We're still within the 5 minutes, so we're not violating it. We're good.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our consent agenda. Just to let everyone in the community, as well as the board knows, there has been an item pulled off the consent agenda, which is now an action item. It's J1A, the RFP for for legal services there, down there, J1A. And I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda that is before us.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor by Dr. Holman, second by Ms. Ryan. Any abstentions?
Aye.
You will be abstaining from?
Claim C.
Claim, Mr. Smith will be abstaining from I-5.
Yes.
Any other abstentions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cassidy,
Aye.
Goding,
Aye.
Holman,
Aye.
Cracky,
Aye.
Perlman,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Snipe,
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
9-9.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Getting here. All right, moving on to our first item. It is J1A, Legal Services, and I do believe Mrs. Gotti?
So I asked for this item to be pulled off simply because it's a very big item, and it was clearly a heavy conversation topic in the community back in 2012 and 13, and there were a number of emails going around last week, so I thought, probably good to talk a little bit about historically where we've been and where we've gotten to. So, of course, Megan wasn't always with us. She came on board in 2014, right? Or was it the end of 13?
End of 13.
So that was one of the first changes in legal, was to have someone in-house legal. And then in 2016, the board approved a number of changes to legal. So it wasn't necessarily going out for an RFP for everything, but I think we voted to add a second in-house legal person who we had for a while, and then that person left. But you're in the process, I think, of looking for more. And then there was also a vote by the board to go out for, I believe, work comp, and then also have a conversation on immigration, because we did immigration in-house. So I thought it might be a good idea for Megan to kind of explain to board members, since you might not have been here during that 2016 vote, kind of what happened and where we are today. Okay. Related to work comp, specifically immigration, and I don't remember, was there another item?
Not that I recall.
Okay.
The other item that I recall was hiring that third, or that second in-house person. That was the third item on that agenda. So for workers' comp, just kind of an update for that. So we took advantage of the current rates that we have with Barrett Home. And so that individual that was previously performing the work for workers' comp was about, it was a partner rate, upwards of $275 an hour, approximately at that time. And we replaced that individual with a $145 an hour individual. So that recommendation at that time was made in large part because of savings for the district. It's also important because workers' comp is hand in hand with HR, that you make sure that you aren't duplicating services, because if you have a workers' comp attorney that maybe is different than your HR attorney, there can be additional duplication of services. And so given the fact that we switched out personnel, have a cheaper person, cheaper rate, a savings to the district, which is why initially the recommendation was made, it continues to be a savings for the district, so we have a brand new person in that role. And so I think we'd be hard-pressed to find someone for less than $145 an hour for those types of services. And then we get the added benefit because they work for the district regularly, that communication with HR happens seamlessly. Also from an immigration standpoint, so as you might be aware, employers, if they sponsor employees that are transferring from a J to an H, they require the employer to pay for that transfer. And the district had a long practice of doing that. Given the extensive legal costs for a period of time, about a year and a half, the district did not have or pay for those transfers. The district's now secured a grant, and the district no longer pays for those legal services for those teachers to transfer from the J process to the H process, and then from the H to the permanent residency. And the employer is required under federal law to pay for that. And for dual language or the various programs that we have within the district, it's really important that we get high quality educators for that, and so we have secured a grant. So that's also was a recommendation because of cost at the time, and it's no longer a cost to the district as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. I thought it was important for the public to understand, since we voted on that in 2016, where we ended up. And I thought it was important for this board to understand the work that had been done before related to working to save money from a legal perspective. And I think this is really here because you went out for bids, but is that correct?
Correct.
We went out for a bid for the entire legal services.
Right. And there aren't other bids on here because this was the one that was received, correct? So I think that's also important for the public to know too, because I think those are always the questions that we get asked. So anyway, I just wanted to be more transparent on the legal services component for the public and for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Goding. Mr. Perlman?
Thank you. I'm wondering if any long-term or medium-term analysis of cost comparisons have been done should the district add more in-house legal counsel versus relying on outside.
I'm happy to talk about that. If we, for example, decided to hire 6 in-house lawyers, the cost would exceed this current cost because of it's not just salary, it's benefits, it's also support. So it would be paralegals, it would be administrative support. In addition, we feel that just due to the complex legal issues that the district faces, we would still at some point have to consult outside counsel, some for some legacy issues that where there is not internal institutional memory. And one of the benefits of the vendor that was selected to for this RFP is the institutional memory that we don't necessarily have in-house. And we often benefit from that institutional memory by not repeating past mistakes because we have someone with a legacy history.
Any other, Mr. Perlman?
I guess my only other question is, what support staff is there for in-house legal counsel as it is today? Is there any paralegals or anything?
No, there is an admin assistant, and because we have outside counsel, often when those needs when we have those kinds of needs, they're provided by our outside counsel.
All righty. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. This is an action item. So I'll entertain a motion. I can't entertain the motion myself, but go ahead.
Move to approve item J1A.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. There's a motion on the floor to approve item J1A, but Mr. Perlman will be abstaining. Any other discussion or anything? Roll call, please.
Dotting.
Aye.
Holman.
Aye.
Cracky.
Aye.
Perlman.
Abstaining.
Ryan.
Aye.
Smith. Aye. Snipe.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Cassidy.
Aye.
8 aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to information, NCAS assessment results 2018-2019. This is an information item. We do have curriculum and research. I didn't want to have to rattle off everyone's names. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Snow, for not taking my role in this presentation, rattling off all the names. Superintendent Dr. Logan, President Snow, Vice President Holman, esteemed Board of Education. We're here tonight to talk about our NSCAS scores for 18-19. I'll begin by echoing Commissioner Bloomstead's statement that this is but one piece of data to inform our efforts. However, as you well know, this is important data. It speaks to the level of mastery across tested subjects our students have obtained on very rigorous new standards. And if someone puts forward a way of measuring our students and our efforts, that is a measure we want to crush. We want to beat that every time. And we see opportunities here. We see within this data that we have the best performing school in the state. We also have the lowest performing school in the state. And so this data provides us in that with evidence of the opportunities we have to better prepare our students for the future and some great models of success and improvement across the reach of OPS schools that we can build upon. Our focus is on the work underway and to come and to produce outcomes that assure every OPS student is prepared to excel in college, career, and life. Tonight we have with you to present to you two administrators from research. I'll give them an order of presentation so that there's no elevating of anyone. We have Melissa Schroeder, Janet Zahm. Joining us from curriculum, we have the Director of Elementary Education, Donna Dobson, and our Chief Academic Officer, Ms. Comine. So without further ado, I will turn it over to the team to provide the presentation. Thank you.
So as Scott mentioned, over the last several years, we've had several changes to both the standards and then also the assessments. And so we've moved into the college and career ready standards. And as you can see, this is our third year of assessment results for English language arts. It'll be our second year for the mathematics results at the college and career ready standards with the assessment. And the results you're going to see for science are based on the assessment that was tied to the legacy standards. This year, we will be field testing a new assessment for science, with the test being operational and tied to the college and career ready standards in 2020. And so, again, just to make a note about these standards, with the new rigorous standards, we got new performance levels. The new levels, we used to have levels that said below, meets, and exceeds, and they now are developing, on track, and college and career ready benchmark. With those came more rigorous cut scores. So what changed is what it used to take to be proficient on our old standards, what the students were expected to be able to know and do, changed. And so it's a much more rigorous level for expectations. So with that, on the next slide, these are our results as a whole district, grades 3 through 8. These include both the general summative results as well as the alternate assessment results. You're going to see that for ELA, again, this is our third year of results, so our scores have remained fairly consistent at that level. For math, this is our second year, and you can see that. And for science, again, this assessment was tied to the legacy standards, and you see a slight decrease there in our third year that's shown on the screen. In the next slide, you're going to see a breakdown by grade level for mathematics. When we do break the scores down by grade level, you can see that there are some slight increases at various grade levels. You can see grade 3, we saw an increase in the percent of students proficient. Grade 4 saw an increase, grade 5, and then also you see where some of the grade levels had a slight decrease. Again, these include both alternate assessment and the general summative assessment results together for grades 3 through 8. For ELA, when it's broken down by grade level, again, you see slight increases in some of the grade levels. You can see an increase at grade 3, in grade 7, in grade 8. And again, this includes both alternate assessment as well as the general summative assessment results. These are the science results. And you see when we break it down by just 5th grade and 8th grade, those are the grade levels where we assess the science standards at the state level. And you can see that 5th grade remained consistent, and there was a slight drop in 8th grade. Some have said that the state also saw a slight decrease, and one reason for that could be is that although we adopted the new college and career ready standards, those are what teachers are instructing to, the assessment is still tied to the legacy standards. And so teachers have to kind of balance both sets of standards in order to make sure that students are ready to take the test, as well as prep them for the new standards, which are going to be assessed beginning this year on a field test, and then operationally in 2021. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Janet to talk a little bit about the ACT results.
So this is the graduating class with the 2019 profile report. You can see that we had 100% of the 2019 graduates included in this report. This report summarizes the preparation and performance of the 2019 graduates who took the ACT as sophomores, juniors, or seniors, and they received a reportable, college reportable composite score. And this report shows the student's most recent ACT score, not necessarily the student's highest score. All of our OPS high schools are national testing sites, and you can see the average scale score shown here for each subject area, and those have remained consistent. Looking at the state NSCAS ACT testing results, you can see the participation rates for ELA, math, and science at 97%. This is the third year cohort students, so these are our junior students, and the 3-year trend depicts similar scores for each subtest. The average scale score is shown for each subject area for each of the years. In looking then at subgroups, again, this is the grade 11 tested students. Remember that the proficiency levels for the state test are developing on-track and ACT benchmark, and on-track and ACT benchmark are considered proficient on the state test. The chart shows the percent of students who met the state proficiency for ELA, math, and science by each subgroup. When we talk about preparing for the ACT, our plans for this year include a lot of collaboration with our curriculum department and also student community services, as well as district communications. So district communications helps us put out all of the information that we give to parents and staff and students. We have 2 lessons that we've developed in collaboration with curriculum instruction support for students, understanding their ACT results, and also the ACT Academy with resources from Khan and other providers. For parents, the schools will communicate with parents when the pre-ACT results are back with students, and students will take those home. We also have a Using Your Pre-ACT Results that will be provided. We're working on a parent resource page that will be up for those results to be posted, for that report to be posted out there. And then we also have fall ACT professional learning opportunities for high schools coming up in November. And now Donna's going to talk about some of the other pieces that we have.
Truly, everything we do at elementary is focused on outcomes for our students in the areas of ELA, math, science, and social studies. So to highlight just a few of the things you see on the screen, one of the big changes this year was the TLC network structure. And what that is, the TLCs are teaching and learning consultants, formerly known as elementary supervisors. And in order to provide support to more schools, instead of a coach being assigned maybe 2 schools, we created a team structure where the TLC network is a team with the TLC, the teaching learning consultant, a literacy coach, a math coach, and a shared science coach, and they together support a group of about 8 schools. So in this way, we can spread out the support to all of our schools more equitably throughout the district. We also have focused on MTSSA. You've heard in the past about MTSSB, multi-tiered systems of support for behavior. We're focusing on the academics piece of it, and this is our year that we're focusing on Tier 1 instruction. And what that means is we're focusing on core instruction. Right now, we want to get every student, every classroom to 80% proficient before we change our focus to interventions. We still do interventions, but right now, in every classroom, in all subjects, we need to be teaching the core to every student at the very highest level. So that's what our focus has been for this year. There's lots of other things. Math continues to be an important focus. We worked with some great PD through Carnegie and OGAP during the summer. Teacher feedback has been very high on that. They're very excited. We focused on common assessments. And again, in all those content areas, it goes back to Tier 1 instruction, providing teaching to the standards in every single classroom. You know we're working on a resource adoption for ELA, and there's lots of exciting things in that area also. We have implemented explicit, systematic phonics instruction in every classroom this year through Phonics Mastery Guides. We have provided dyslexia training for our intermediate teachers at Curriculum Day. We have an exciting partnership with NDE with a group called School Kit to help plan our launching of our new resource once that is selected. We're doing a literacy audit that will be coming up with Children's Literacy Initiative. To sum it all up, everything we do every day is about supporting our teachers so they can support our students.
In addition to the ACT and pre-ACT work that Janet talked about, there are 3 major areas of focus for our secondary this school year. The first one is 9th grade on track. And ninth grade on track is a research-based metric that predicts whether or not a student is on track to graduate high school in 4 years. And the metric is most commonly known as the ABCs, standing for attendance, behavior, and credits. And what happens is the ninth grade team of teachers that is responsible for their group of students, they pull data approximately every 4.5 weeks. And they take a look at the strengths, they take a look at the needs, and then they're able to develop real-time strategies that they implement with the students who are not showing progress to stay on track in ninth grade to graduate in 4 years. The ninth grade on track strategy is not just for ninth grade, but it's a persistent strategy that can follow students through 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade to graduation. We also have our MTSS focus, which stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support for Academics. And we are focusing, as Donna mentioned, in elementary on high-quality instruction, the Tier 1 instruction. And in secondary, that is coupled with a rigorous course selection as well. And both of those work together to help our students meet college, career, and civic readiness standards. The MTSS process is grounded in data, in which teams look at both system and school level data, and they ask themselves questions like, what is the problem? Why is the problem occurring? What should we do about the problem? And did our solution work? So the accurate and timely data is critical to effective problem solving, which leads us into our third focus area, which is the school improvement planning and content area planning for each content area at secondary. As you are aware, each school develops a school improvement plan, and all of the teaching and learning consultants develop content area plans to work with schools and their departments and teachers. Each plan at the school and district level begins with the district and school's mission and vision, which is followed up with a data analysis that CIS and research lead to help schools identify their goals, strategies, success criteria, and then also a monitoring and adjusting period. Professional development is always critical. You see some of the options there for professional development this year. And then we also have added a budget alignment piece to our school improvement process. And so right now the team is willing to take questions.
Real quick, before I open up to the board, Dr. Logan, is there anything you want to add to this before we get into it of any changes? Okay. Members of the board, do you guys have any questions, comments? Ms. Snipe.
Just for clarification, you mentioned the 80% proficiency and then intervention. So I'm just wondering, and if I should know this, my fault, 80% proficient in what? And I'm just curious as to why the intervention would come afterwards.
So Tier 1 instruction is instruction that every student receives. And what it focuses on is the teacher delivering instruction that meets the needs of most students? And what the research tells us is if a teacher is delivering that type of instruction, the goal is to reach 80% of their students. And then the 20% that are left over would then receive an additional Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention.
Just to give a little bit more context to that, sometimes what we'll see is that sometimes in classrooms we'll go straight to the intervention, and we haven't monitored to see whether or not the initial instruction that was given was effective. And so we just go right to this kid needs an intervention and not reflect on, did I deliver the basic instruction or the base instruction to all of my students well. Go back and reteach and then move to the Tier 2 intervention, and then later to the Tier 3 intervention. The other thing about the Tier 3 intervention is it's really about more time with the intervention. It's not necessarily a different intervention. It can be a different intervention, but usually it's really about the number of minutes that a student would have in that intervention and how often they might have that second Tier 2 intervention. Is that helpful? Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Cracky.
I have one question. You mentioned dyslexia children are, you're talking to teachers in 4th, 5th, 6th grade about dyslexia?
Yes, I'll let Donna.
But I think we do that much sooner than that.
Yes.
It's identified in the classroom readily, almost within 3 weeks. And so what happens in the lower grades or the others?
In order to address that, this is the year we started mastery guides with explicit systematic phonics instruction. So that has been in every single classroom, 20 minutes every day.
But the dyslexia children, tell me how that comes into play. How is that different from the other children? You're trying to tell them how to identify?
What this is, what the dyslexia research would tell us is that we need to be focused on the phonics as far as an explicit systematic way to teach it. So that's what we've introduced this year. We will continue to approach that. What we did with our intermediate teachers was give them an overview. We're planning on mastery guides and the phonics instruction making a difference for those students in their primary grades. So by the time we get to intermediate, we will have less need for that other intervention.
Okay.
Mrs. Gotti.
Thank you all for the presentation. Thank you for putting the data together for us. I think I'll start off with with the big theme. And Mr. Schmidt-Bonney mentioned it. We had a school that was the highest performing, right? And so when you look at that data, and then when you heard the teachers or read the principal's comments in the paper, the most important thing about her comments was, we teach the state standards here. And so you all know that I have been very, very adamant about moving curriculum to a place where we have curriculum that aligns with the state standards. So in ELA, I know Dr. Logan would say, and I would say, we're 2 or 3 cycles behind, which has caused a strain. We just heard that the math standards were changed 2 years ago. We haven't done anything with math curriculum yet, and we know that science is coming up for a change. So from a big picture standpoint, this board has to take seriously curriculum and providing the information that teachers need in their hands immediately to help our test scores get better. These test scores, are not anything to write home about. They're not anything to get terribly excited about, and that concerns me. Because I'm watching slippage here that is absolutely unbelievable. So I have a few questions. Does the state number on the document that you prepared for us, NSCAS results, does that include OPS in the state number? Or is OPS is in the total because it's the entire state? So I just pulled, for instance, ELA at 4th grade. Back in 16-17, we had a 13-point gap with the state, and now we're at 21. So the state has gone up 2 points, and I always look to see what did the state do, because I always think, well, if the state dropped and we dropped, it's a clear indication of, the test was harder or there was a challenge. But when I see that we dropped 6 and the state went up 2, and our numbers are in that 2, something is not working in probably whether it's curriculum, whether it's how we're able, and I understand we have a lot of poverty and I get that part of it, but I get concerned when I see that the state can move forward and we're not moving forward, and that makes me very sad for our kids specifically. And then when I looked at the results of 3rd through 8th grade, and I think the one that really jumped out at me was the 2 or more races, students with 2 or more races. From 3rd grade to 8th grade, we see a 26-point drop in test scores. That breaks my heart. We see 3rd grade at 44% in math, and we see 8th grade at 18% in math. So I think we as a board have to be really dedicated to focusing our budget on what makes a difference in students' lives, and not so focused on whether it be the pretty or the, hey, this sounds good, but we have to be really dedicated to putting our money where students are going to see achievement. Because if we don't, it's just disappointing to see where we're ending up at. And I'm struggling currently with how do I explain in my own sub-district the drop-in test scores and the rankings. And that's tough because students in my area do have choice, and they will make choice, and that bothers me. So, and I look at the ACT college readiness, I think we have to be really dedicated to making sure we had planned, we had Aspire and Plan. So we had all that data before as well, just like we have the data that will happen tomorrow. And I'm not sure that we're dedicated intentionally enough to focusing every day. I had a child that was a junior last year. I would have expected him to have an ACT question in every core class every day so that he would have been a little bit better prepared. And I don't know that that's where we're at. So I would encourage us to get to that place because I think that's pretty big. And I would also encourage us really to take a look at math when I look at ACT college readiness benchmarks. Just across the board for the district, our students are 11% ready in math for college. 11% of our students are ready for math. And it probably echoes why I hear that there's a lot of remedial happening with our students at the community college level. So I would just, suggest that this board really focus heavily as we think about budgeting and strategic planning on those things that drive student achievement forward. We have a lot of dedicated teachers who are trying really, really hard, but when the curriculum is very outdated, it's a challenge for them. So I do have a couple questions off of the state website because I was confused, and I just want to make sure it doesn't have a negative impact on us. In 17-18, we showed the district snapshot that the state has is 77% reduced, free and reduced lunch, which I think is pretty close to where we're at. But for the 18-19 numbers, they're showing 72%. But yet our ELL, changed some, but not significantly. How did we go from 77 to 72?
Well, before even Scott gets started, there are many, and I don't like to point to errors, but there are many errors on the state website, many errors. We have some classifications that we aren't sure are the classifications. In one case, with a school that had a pretty precipitous drop, it was 1/100th of a percent that had the school drop 2 levels. So we have some questions. We know that we have some challenges, so we will, we accept the data, but we also need to be careful consumers of what we are receiving. And one thing about a choice system, that a choice system does, and you all know I come from a system with a significant choice system, is it concentrates poverty and it concentrates need. And so where you might distribute need and you might distribute poverty, when you go to a choice system, you concentrate those. And so when you do that, this is what happens. And so we need to be really always careful consumers of the data. I appreciate that Scott, Mr. Schmidt-Bonney, pardon me, started the conversation today with saying we have the highest performing school and we have the lowest, because we own the highest performing school as much as we own the lowest performing school. So to be clear on that, I am very pleased that the board put in the budget the need for instructional resources, and perhaps we'll consider a cycle of making sure that we have up-to-date instructional resources. We know that our current reading resources are from 2004, and we need to stay up to date with that. So I do appreciate that. And we will continue to work hard so that we have the results that we know that our students are very capable of as we support our teachers in their daily work. But I'm always really careful because I don't want our teachers to be discouraged because they are working hard, and we as a district need to make sure that they have the instructional resources that they need in order to do that well. But let's make no mistake about what a choice system does to concentrated poverty, and we are remarkable, even with our challenges, to make sure that we accept every student, regardless of their income, their language needs, and any other things that make up the student group that they come from. You will notice I never use the word subgroup. Sub is pejorative. It means that people are less than. And so I always use the word student group. I've said that to the department, the U.S. Department of Education, on more than one occasion, that they need to stop doing that because that's not who our kids are.
So on the poverty number, does that, will that have a negative impact on our funding? The way this number is showing up here, or what would we say our number for 18-19? Is this an error? This is an error?
This is an error.
Okay. So I had another question on, so is it also an error under expenditures where it went from 628 million to 668 million? Is that an error as well? Yeah.
There are so many on there.
Yes.
There are so many on there to count. I don't even know where to get started, and I don't want to disparage our wonderful state commissioner because I know his team is working hard and they're trying to get that data right. So I want to make sure that I'm really clear and not disparaging them because nobody is intending to do that. It's a lot, and everyone is trying to do the best that they can to make the numbers right, but they aren't exactly where we are.
So did we, so I guess, so these are just some of the questions I've had, and I know other people have asked me these as well. On evidence-based analysis, did we submit, or are we really at zero?
The website the information that's posted on the website was before the evidence-based analysis was even due.
Okay.
So the evidence, the schools don't have the opportunity to do an evidence-based analysis until after the scores are released. They have a very short window. It was a really arduous task, according to Dr. Talbot, who relayed it to me in excruciating detail last week. But our schools that were eligible to receive an EBA all went through the EBA process to improve their AQUEST designations.
Okay, and I do remember when the Nebraska Department of Ed came and explained that whole process to us, and it sounded awful. It sounded like a lot of work. I mean, so I can remember that presentation distinctly because I knew that, but when I saw this, I thought, how does that relate? Because the year before we had a pretty good EBA number. So that's just not on here yet. Okay.
To be clear, we have work to do. We have one school that I know, and I don't, it's keeping me up at night. I'm not even, and my staff knows because they get an email late. And we're going to, I shared with our OEA president, it is my cross to bear to make sure that school, that we do not have the lowest performing school in the state. We are better than that. Our kids are smarter than that, and we have, as a central office, to do the things that we need to do to support those young people, the teachers, the principal at that school, to make sure that they are not there next year or any other year, because I know we can do better.
So I guess my only comment would be I just encourage us to be on a regular curriculum cycle and get as I said, we have really great teachers and they work really, really hard, but if we don't give them all the material, it's very hard, especially if you're in a school with a lot of numbers and you have a lot of teachers as a principal to oversee. I mean, I know Columbian has been teaching phonics for a while. They run their math program entirely differently. It doesn't necessarily look like some of the curriculum that we have available for all of our other buildings. So I just want to make sure, to me, that's the most important thing. That's what boards should do. They should focus on student achievement, and they should be focused on ensuring that curriculum is on a regular cycle and that we don't end up with reading from 2004 and that we don't end up with, my 24-year-old used the material in third grade that we are still using to this day, and that test has changed multiple times. So that's my concern, is that we haven't moved our kids forward because of budget issues. We've got the money, we just have to figure out how to reallocate it.
Couldn't agree more, and I do want to make sure that I recognize Principal Nanette Beller, who was the former principal of Columbian and is now helping us in several of our schools. We're tickled for that. But I will tell you that if you are a student who reads well, you come into Columbian and you're reading well as a kindergartner, that is not enough for her. She's going to make sure that was the first things that I noticed that when I went to visit that school. It doesn't matter how bright a kid is when they come in there, she is determined that they're going to be a better reader, and exemplary leadership and a deep knowledge of early literacy and how kids learn how to read is something that has propelled that school, as well as an amazing group of teachers who do not take no for an answer. So I want to make sure we give Columbian their due.
Mrs. Cracky.
Couple of things. When the state gets their numbers right and straightens out the report that we got, will we get a copy of that? Will they share that? That's one of the questions. And then I always complain about this forever and ever with the supplemental materials that we must have. We need that if we're going to make this happen and work. You cannot use some of the things, for instance, language. Take a book today of language that is on the market. It doesn't contain all the things that we need. We're going to have to provide and make up some supplemental materials. I've said that before, in order to have children know what we want them to know, because what they get in front of them isn't doing the job. And it didn't do the job when I was teaching. I had other things. I taught out of 3 math books, and I taught out of about 3 language books. And then I did more on top of that, because you're not going to get the results this way. It's just like that. You open it up and you talk about something, and they waste time in those pages in some of those books when they could be doing better. But that's what's on the market. And so we purchase them because every 7 years we're supposed to be making updates. But I'd like us to have more input, as we talked before, about those people who are making the programs and writing the books. I think we are big enough to have some input with them, and I would encourage us to try to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Cassidy.
Thank you. I just have 2 questions. On the 9th grade on track, can you talk a little bit about what the University of Chicago Consortium, what is that participation, what does that mean?
So we have 4 schools that are participating this year. One is a repeat from last year, and so they attend 3 times, they go 3 times, they take a team, a very intense learning of how to implement the 9th grade on track. So starting with the data that needs to be pulled, setting up learning teams and professional development networks of teachers of how to take a look at the data and then how to respond to it to put interventions in place, and then how to actually put that system in place every 4.5 weeks.
Really intense training.
Yes.
South has been, it's been South is the South's 2nd year. So South, Benson started this year, Northwest, and Bryan, sorry.
That was my next question.
Yeah, those were the 4. The other 3 will begin in the upcoming next year. So, and MOAC has taken it on as one of the things that they're going to be doing. We will participate in the training, though, at the University of Chicago, because the MOAC training will be nice, but they're not going to do the intensity. So we want to make sure we've seen great progress with South, especially in their 2nd year, and a very dedicated team. And so we want to make sure that nicest way I can say it is we bake our cake with butter and not margarine, and don't do something light, because we know that our kids need the intensity of that. I can tell you now that it's coming out already as one of the priority goals for our strategic plan, along with third grade reading, which we all know is the most important thing that we do.
Thank you. My second question, and you mentioned this at the very end of the presentation, you talked about the budget alignment piece.
Yes.
What does that all entail?
So it's taking a look at the resource allocations that our schools receive, and budget is one of them. And so making sure that our schools are very intentional up front when they're doing their school improvement planning, their data analysis, creating their goals, their strategies, that they think about how they use the dollars they've been given and the other resources, which could be staff, space, things like that, and that is equally important as everything else that they take into consideration when they roll out their school improvement plan and implement it. And so one of the things that we've talked to staff about is when you receive your dollars, they're for your students this year. So let's make sure the students benefit from those dollars day one. Do not wait to spend your dollars in January and February. So just making sure that everything fits hand in glove, that we take advantage of all the resources we have for our students.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I have some questions. I'm kidding. I do have questions. The first question is college and career readiness standards. I'm curious to find out what are the challenges with the new standards that the district has been facing.
So a couple different things. These standards have moved around. So for example, in math, some 8th grade standards in the past are now taught in 6th grade. So not only have they been moved down, it also takes our students a few years to catch up because there's a gap of 2 or 3 years. And then the standards are much more rigorous and difficult. And so they have to have a higher level of mastery. So Melissa had mentioned that in the past we used to have beginning, meets expectation, and then also exceeds expectations. In the past, you could meet an expectation, but this time, with the College Career Ready standards, in order to meet the expectation, you had to basically exceed the expectation on the previous assessment. And so to meet it, you had to basically exceed it.
I understand. Thank you. And I have 2 more questions, and actually the last question will probably ties to the first question, and I just give this question now. What can we do as a board to help assist you and the district in making sure our test scores move up and not flat? And I'm talking on a policy level. I'm talking about realigning funds, and we have to get out of the context or the knowledge that a strategic plan is going to save it all, right? So the next question on that actually goes to the Khan Academy. I think it says we're still investigating it or something. Do we know if we're going to go with it, or I'm just...
We're definitely planning on going with it. We had some legal wrangling that had to be done because of the way data is shared with Khan, and we don't hand our data out like candy. So we had to speak with Khan about how we're going to, I think the expectation is for us to have it available in January or the beginning of February. So that's just we started as soon as we went last April, we started the process of working to bring Khan on board, but we've had some legal issues, and we had a few technology, but I think those were actually more less important than some of the legal issues around data sharing.
Thank you. I believe that any supplemental help will help our students, especially in that math category, which our superintendent and we've all have been charged with this. So that last question that I just asked, what can we do as a board? This could either be posed to you, Dr. Logan, or Mrs. Comine. What can we do as a board to help you guys have the test scores move from a board policy level, advocacy level? I'm here to learn.
Discipline around sticking to the few things that count. So the board has received the strategic priorities, and we know already that third grade reading is going to come out as a major item for our strategic plan of action, and how we focus our funds around that, and don't get distracted by all these other things that seem interesting, because if we at the one of the Futures Labs, we were asked, what is the one thing, if we get right, a lot of things will fall into place. And there were all kinds of things that came up, and I was kind of yelling and jumping up and down, like third grade reading. If our kids can read by the end of third grade, we'll be well on our way. So focusing a lot of resources. If you look at our, and this is not anyone's fault, but if you look at our current budget, the amount of money we're spending on reading is not where we need it to be with the intensity of what our needs need. So to Ms. Godding's point about where we have been focusing our resources, that's going to be a big push. We have our Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday Children's Literacy Initiative, which is a national think tank on children's literacy. That's all they do. They don't do anything else. They're coming to do a audit for us of and we kind of know where we're going to fall out, but we're going to have the experts kind of come in. They'll talk with teachers, they'll talk with principals, they'll look at what we're using, they'll look at our pilot materials that we're considering adopting, but mostly the instruction that students are receiving in the classroom. We took a big step forward. Thank you to our Director of Elementary School, Donna Dobson, and her team, and Chief Comine, in reference to adopting the mastery guides for phonics. We had schools where kids weren't getting phonics every day. So now we make sure every child is getting phonics in K through 3 for at least 20 minutes a day. And it has to be systematic in order to be successful. We're so fortunate at Columbia, and we were so fortunate to have Nanette Beller there, a reading expert. But we have to guarantee that in every school that we have that, so that'll be a part of our journey as we move forward. It's not going to be probably glamorous or exciting, focusing on third grade reading, and again in ninth grade to increase our graduation rate. We have to focus on our ninth grade on track, because it's a big predictor on whether or not kids are going to graduate on time and whether or not they're going to be successful. So the transition to ninth grade as well. So those are things that we know are going to come out. And then how we're looking at our high school programming and being more disciplined. We can't do everything. We can't do everything well. And how we think about sunsetting some programs and initiating programs that align better with our workforce development. So those are things that we, and I invite the board to visit our 3 data rooms, one for high school, one for middle, one for elementary school. When we have the strategic plan board committee, we will have an opportunity to visit those rooms. We are looking at, and it is stark to see it on the wall, and to see where we have some opportunities, and systematically where we have some opportunities to do some things a lot better. So I invite you. You can come any day. We'll make sure that somebody takes you through there.
Thank you, Dr. Logan. Mrs. Godding.
So just in reference to your question on policy, Mr. Snow, high-quality districts have policies that say every 7 years we're replacing curriculum. That's what a high-quality district does. We don't have that policy in place. That's something we absolutely should have, and it's why I hammer on it every time I get a chance, because it's the one thing that makes a difference in kids' lives. And it's the one thing that I've witnessed for my own children that makes a difference. The second thing that I would strongly say is that we have to communicate better with parents. For instance, every single one of our high schools should, after the PSAT is taken the sophomore year, be sending letters home to those parents saying, load those scores into Khan Academy, where you will be able to direct your child to improve their PSAT score. And I think I've shared this story before, but I heard a speaker, a young woman who was a great student athlete in high school, but had no opportunity to go on to a Division I school because her PSAT, SAT score was too low. She dedicated herself to loading those scores in and making a difference. By the time she graduated, she had raised her SAT score by 800 points, and she had 12 Division I scholarship offers in track. We need to communicate better with our parents on doing those things, and we don't do that well. That resource has been out there for several years. I've mentioned it multiple times at the board table, but our counselors have to do a better job of getting that information out to parents. So I think those are a couple of things, focusing on policy, focusing on budget, and communicating well.
Thank you. Dr. Logan, Mrs. Godding mentioned, curriculum every 7 years. Is that typically where, that's the normal, I believe?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
that's typically nationwide. The goal is to adopt every 7 years. It is starting to change, though, because so many districts are going to OER, Open Education Resources, because you don't really need to buy as much stuff anymore. There's so much stuff that's free. We have a team that's going to the National Open Educational Resource. I believe it's in November, Ms. Comine. We have a team that's going there because we need to also advance our knowledge of OER and to take advantage of those no-cost, high-quality, no-cost resources that are aligned to standards. So we're looking forward to them coming back and giving us some of that. Some of the information can be used, even if we don't use it in schools, it certainly can be shared with parents for them to use.
We have a policy committee meeting on October 30th. Would you be able to get a rough draft in front of Ms. Ryan about a ongoing cycle of curriculum by that meeting?
I certainly can. Mrs. Comine has one, because I think there's a draft one already for the district, but was not adopted, or?
It's not adopted.
So we have one that we work from, but it's not adopted by the board.
It's not officially a board policy?
No.
Is there a way that we can have that presented to Ms. Ryan before the 30th meeting for policy so she can update the committee and they can look at potentially implementing a policy from this table?
I can provide all that information to Dr. Logan.
I want to make sure when we walk away from this table, we have action, and then we come back by the end of the year or next year, early January, that we can say from this meeting, we did something, and this is the reaction.
I'd also want to be able to give the board where we are with our resources so we would know what the fiscal outcome would, the financial
tag on it.
Yeah, tag would be.
That's why I said, January, push it, but that the policy committee is discussing it. Thank you so much, Dr. Logan. Thank you so much. Research and curriculum, I appreciate it. Up next is, I believe it is J2B, Phase 1 and Phase 2 Bond Program Update. We have Mark Summers from Jacobs. We also have operations here as well.
President Snow, Vice President Holman, board members, Dr. Logan, thanks as always for allowing us to come and share a little bit about your bond programs, plural. We're working feverishly, I would say, on coming to a close on Phase 1 over the next couple of months, and of course, really getting active and launching many projects as it relates to Phase 2. This is just an overview. You've seen this multiple times, but just as a reminder, Phase 1 had 83 total projects. None of them are left to design or bid an award. 3 remain in construction. That is Kellum, Nathan Hale, and some data cabling updating work that's happening at Central High School. 9 projects in closeout, and that leaves 71 of them as complete. Just a quick financial snapshot of the Phase 1 program. Total commitments, and just a quick reminder, commitments are contracts or purchase orders that have been written by the districts, $421 million, slightly above that. Expenditures are checks or payments that that this board has approved through the claims process to be issued. That's the $412 million, $334,772 figure you see in front of you. Forecasted to complete $2.4 million, which includes the spending of the balance of the program contingency from a Phase 1 perspective. Economic inclusion, again, a summary of that. Contracts that apply to this initiative is $386,550,000. From a commitments perspective, you can see between the Tier 1 and Tier 2 small businesses, that's 11.9 or nearly 12%. And expenditures is the 11.67%. So again, we'll expect to see that 11.67 grow to the 11.9 as additional payments are issued from Phase 1. One of the things that our team, and I would say not only on the Jacobs side, but of course the school district side, over the last couple of months have really been talking about lessons learned from Phase 1. And I put a couple of those items here on the slide in front and just going to briefly touch on each one. We're working on implementing an occupancy readiness transition team. That's made up of district staff, Jacobs staff, the architect on the project, and the contractor on the project. And the intent is for that group to do on-site visits about 6 months prior to the project's substantial completion. And what they're really looking for is to evaluate what's the current status of the life safety system, so that would be fire alarm, fire sprinkler systems, accessibility, you see ADA there, what's the accessibility of the building looking like, and then just general readiness of the facility, and trying to put some measurable predictors out there on these different categories to make sure as the time to occupy the spaces or the entire facility, there's strong confidence that it will be ready for occupancy. As part of that overall effort, our team, we're going to increase the size of our team with a couple of individuals that are specific to working in the field and monitoring quality of work, the manpower that the subcontractors and contractors are providing to perform the work, and then doing some day-to-day tracking on the overall schedule so we can get the real story, if you will. So that will increase the Jacobsville presence. In addition, we're also introducing a monthly stand and deliver presentation. That's with folks from my leadership team as well as the district's leadership team. And really what that is it's an opportunity to identify concerns that we have or recommendations that Jacobs is providing to the school district to consider and take action on. And that might be necessary in the case of if weather delays the opening of a project potentially, what are the contingency plans that are needed? If there's critical design decisions that need to be made that potentially could impact the project as well. But just making sure that top to bottom on both teams, there's full awareness of program and project status from a month-to-month basis. And then one of the other kind of major undertakings that we've also done over the last couple of months is gone back and looked at the Phase 2 overall master schedule to try to identify areas that we feel like the schedule might be a little bit too compressed. Are there some areas that need to be relaxed a little bit? Largely to make sure that the project timelines can be satisfied by the current busyness in the marketplace. So one of the big challenges really at the end of Phase 1 was subcontractor manpower. And so with that information and those lessons learned, we wanted to go back and review and evaluate kind of the overall flow of the schedule. Where are these things are just too tight. The marketplace can't deliver and meet on that need. So let's be smart and not try to force that issue. Let's step back a little bit and say this is going to be better for ultimately the students and the staff when they get into the building and the final product that is delivered. So those are some of the things that we've been working on over the last couple of months from a lessons learned perspective and things going forward that we'll be able to report on from a Phase 2 outcome. Again, an overview of Phase 2, similar format as Phase 1, except for there's only 25 projects instead of 83. 19 of those are active. You can see there's a significant portion in the design and under bid window, as well as construction. Lots of things happening similar to Phase 1. I know not all board members were there, but there's kind of a steep curve on the front end of the projects. We like to get projects in the design process, kind of get them moving, get them out of the gate. One of the things that we're really trying to work within are all the systems, I'll say, that provide approvals to do these projects. So as part of these projects, they all have to go through a permit review process. And there's a lot of pages in a $75 million high school for the code officials to review. So we're really trying to plan as much time as possible for that process, and then we're also trying to work with them on understanding are there ways to break packages up to help us kind of fast track different components in those projects. Total commitments to date, $85 million, about 20% of the overall program. $25 million, nearly $26 million $26 million has been spent. Forecasted commitment is the balance, which is $324 million. And right now, we're forecasting use of about $17.4 million. Largely, that is in support of the both high school site development scopes of work. From an economic inclusion perspective, one of the things that we're working on in Phase 2, and again in a measurable way, is student engagement. So over 1,000 students over the last year we've been able to work with, and when I say we, it's kind of a broad we, the design teams, the contractors, all the folks providing support on the Phase 2 bond program. And the students are engaged. Some of them have opportunity to visit design studios and talk with architecture firms. Some of them have opportunity to talk to specific engineers. Many of them have had opportunities to go on different site tours. And one of the things that we're trying to couple with is there's some, we're working also on some very large infrastructure projects. So there's a lot of heavy engineering related to that. And so we're kind of coupling different opportunities with different projects that we are working on. From a small business engagement or inclusion perspective, you can see the commitment to date is 5.12%. I will say there are going to be some challenges in Phase 2 from a body of available contractors, from a pool of small businesses. The certified businesses have dropped off by more than about half over the last year or so. So we're trying to understand the why behind that and work with the city and their information, try to understand what recruitment efforts are going on. We're continuing to do a lot of the same things, all of the same things that we've done in the past, but we really want to try to understand that specific why entities are decertifying or choosing to not renew. So that's some of the work that we're working on from an economic inclusion perspective to make sure that we can maintain the track record that was developed in Phase 1. And then just as a closing slide, the bond.ops.org website's updated on a regular basis with all the financial and schedule information on the projects. There's a couple of dashboards, one for Phase 1 and one for Phase 2. So always like to make sure everybody knows that this same information is available publicly through that website. And then all of the monthly reports that are produced by the team are also posted to that same website and available, all 200 pages worth. Glad to take any questions.
All right, first question, Dr. Holman.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Summers. I have two questions for you. Can you tell me what the status is of Jacobs Academy? Is that still active, or?
Yep, we're going to set up, so in Phase 2, even though there's 5 projects under construction, they're really just kind of earthwork. So we're starting our academy in the spring.
And then my next question is, for your standard delivery presentations, who are those presentations delivered to?
The first one is scheduled, I believe, for October 30th. Dr. Logan, and then ultimately the staff that she selects to have that, but I believe it'll be the Chief Operations Officer, and then any folks that they would also want to have in that discussion as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mr. Perlman.
Do we know, or is the district or taxpayers still paying for the 1999 bond? You know?
I think it's a couple more years left on it.
And if so, I was wondering if there's an opportunity to refinance those with the lower interest rates that we've been seeing over the last year.
Mrs. Gotti.
So some of those were already refinanced to a lower interest rate, and maybe I should refer to the CFO on this one, but are we getting to the point where it's primarily principal and not so much interest?
It is. We have engaged outside parties to look at potential refi, and it's work that's under advisement right now. We'll circle back with the board in a nominal time period here and close the loop.
I have a couple questions, and then a statement. Well, one is a statement. I really do believe this project Phase 2 is going to be very hard for inclusion because some of this is like mechanical. I get it. So many of the small businesses, the SEBs could only do that moving dirt kind of type of work. So I really strongly emphasize that the Jacobs Academy or whatever entity is created to help assist these small emerging businesses, whether I'm more focused on that tier one group, are sustainable, because obviously the reason why there was a drop-off, and this isn't just a Jacobs thing, this is a city thing, is because no one's really given the tools to be sustainable, right? There's very few businesses out there that can say when all this construction work started years ago, they had one person and now they're up to 4. Now, some of them, it could be a financial thing, but I think we really have to be, if we really want to make this work and look back 10, 20 years and say, who did we really benefit outside of building great schools for our students and teachers to be in the community? How did the community benefit? We have to be true to what we wanted to do and not just hit the numbers and say we hit them, moving on to the next thing. So that was, I've actually just gave the statement first. Another one on there, I have a question. So the students that are engaged, do we have any, like, what is engagement with students? I have like a couple kids that said all they did was walk around, but I don't know, like, do we have a standard? What is student engagement when these companies take these students out?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of documents that they're required to fill out and provide, and so I'll gather those up and furnish them through Matt Ray, and you guys can kind of take a look. And so we asked them to provide that information so we can understand engagement. It is going to vary a little bit depending on the size of the project. For example, if there's a large group of students walking around, an infrastructure project or a heavy civil project, a little bit more difficult than a small group of students coming into a design studio and saying, hey, let's talk about this element of a project. But we do have specific documentation. It's similar to, I'll say, kind of a good faith effort on the SEB. We want to make sure that they're actively reaching out to the students. We have coordinated with curriculum on what types of things align with curriculum that's being taught to the students in the classroom from a field perspective. Because if we can't help that piece advance, then not that there isn't a good value in the engagement, but ultimately if we can couple the engagement with the curriculum that the students are learning, then they can put some tangible pieces together. But I'll furnish that information.
Can we also get I wouldn't say an extra interview, but a survey of those students on how they felt engaged? A lot in this community, Omaha, Nebraska, we struggle at retaining talent and seeing Metro Community College. I mean, everyone's talking about workforce development. So how can we take this project and not just have it, to me, in a silo, but connect with Metro, connect with some of these entities that are going to try to take the students from point A to point B. I know most of this is to engage students, but how do we pass them on and really have somebody there that is willing to help them if they're really interested in doing this type of work? Are we already doing it?
Well, the way we're approaching the student engagement is early workforce development. It is feeding the pipeline early. It is.
But are we passing them off?
Correct. We've had conversations with Metro, and we're looking at opportunities for internships beyond just the student engagement piece. So we are working on those avenues as well.
Because my thing is, I agree with you. I mean, I'm expecting when I see 1,000 students that Metro's getting a call saying we got 1,000 students we just engaged. Follow up with them and see if they're interested, because obviously there are funds out there for them. My next question is the Phase 2 master schedule. Do we know when that will be complete?
I think the district's kind of reviewing it based on some of the recommendations that we have made. I think this meeting in October will be, I think from our perspective, kind of the finality of the recommendations we made as far as kind of uncompressing it. Again, that's going to be a district decision of, yep, this is the schedule we want to go with, or we're comfortable with incorporating these recommendations. But that's something that will be heavily discussed in October, end of October.
Perfect. And just talking to some people in the construction industry, when you have large sites like this, you expect that you're going to get more people calling and complaining about, dump truck, blah, blah, blah. I'm not expecting OPS to have a hotline for this, but I don't expect to be sending my superintendent pictures from people just sending because it rained and the mud just washed in their yard. So, I think I've seen it before on sites in the city where they have like a sign for someone to call if they have any complaints, because obviously that person has to go online, look up their board member to send off like an email, take pictures, as if they could just say, hey, you got a complaint, call this number or refer to this office.
So there's a couple of lines of communication that community or neighbors can use. There is on the bond website, you can send into the bond program. It's an email account.
So there's a website they can complain in the bond.
Yep,
OPS.
you can go right into there and send an email.
Or make a comment, not complain.
Correct. Or provide applause, whatever's necessary. There's also a contact phone number there that rings our office manager, and then she kind of dispatches the voicemail or the phone calls. But one of the things we try to do initially is be good neighbors and work with the contractors that are going to be on site. And for the most part, they'll walk around and pass out some flyers. They'll stick them in the mailboxes. They'll put them in the doors. Hey, if you have a concern, call Joe Smith first. He's the superintendent on the site. And that's who we're ultimately going to call first and say, hey, there's a concern about mud or rain. What do you know? Oh, I just talked with Jerry. He's the neighbor. This silt fencing failed because of the amount of rain. We're already on it. I've talked with them. So that's really the best initial line is for them to put a face and a name together. You mentioned the size of some of these projects. They're going to be there for a long time. So again, to really be good neighbors, you got to know that person. So those are a couple of things that are ultimately in place right now. Of course, some folks really feel like they need to communicate to the entire board or the superintendent.
I get it.
Gladly,
Yeah.
I'm sure you manage
Makes
that
sense.
on a regular basis. But we'll continue to provide those conduits, and if there's any other options the board would like us to look at, we can definitely try to figure out other ways to facilitate that communication on a regular basis.
I appreciate it. I must have overlooked that the website did have a spot. You can make a comment on it. I just thought of one other thing. Last time, I remember we had a conversation about the 60th and L site, the crossings. Do we know where we're at on any of that? We're good with making sure? Okay.
Yep.
Because I know there was a lot of, I drive by it a lot, and there's still tons of traffic that crosses, and I don't want a student making a complete beeline from the Quick Trip straight to the school.
Yep, there's going to be some new signals added, and some signals will move. On L Street, that's all coordinated with the city and the state, because that's an existing
Will
highway.
they be able to hold the lights longer? I'm
As far
sorry
as
to
the
get into
timing
weeds,
of that,
but
yeah,
you guys
that's-
have worked it out, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Mrs. Goding.
I do want us to be respectful, though, when property owners have damage that is caused by the work that we have. We don't want to discount that and don't complain. So I do want to be respectful to the people who are living near our sites and the damage that they experience, because if we experienced it on our own property, we would also be very frustrated if, for those of us who own homes. I don't like that to happen to me either, so I just want to acknowledge that.
Yeah. And I think if they had something that they could just go ahead, that was a little bit easier, because obviously I've seen them, they took their time to send all the stuff in. As for me, I think, kind of like the mayor's hotline, you could pick that up, make a call, and the mayor's responding immediately. That person's responding. So I agree with you on that. Thank you. All right. I think that's it.
Thank you.
I do believe I skipped over the treasurer's report. I saved the best for last, Mr. Roberts.
I'll do that all over again. My apologies. President Snow, members of the board, Superintendent Logan, financial statements for the period ended September 30th have been finalized and submitted for your review.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. I overlooked policies. J2C, jumping back down. So if we jumped up to G, back down to J2C. Policy updates, Mr. Ray.
Best for last, right, Mr. Snow? That's what you said.
Say it again?
You said best for last.
I did say the best for
Yes,
last, I
thank
know.
you.
It's really, okay.
Mr. Snow, we've provided these paper copies to you at the last board meeting with some changes. I've received input for changes, and they've been uploaded to the agenda, so these are all information. Policy 1120, Policy 2500 both add the electronic nicotine delivery systems. 4430, if you remember, was a policy that was brought forward before and then revised again, and it's all red to show that it's been completely revised. Then there's revisions to 5305, school dance policies, additions of the electronic nicotine delivery system, and then we've moved around some of the wording to connect middle schools to some of the other points that were brought forward. This is a change to the paper copy that you were provided. And then policy 5402 is the change to the child abuse reporting procedures. There's some changes that were brought to my attention just a few minutes ago. We went a little bit comma crazy in that last sentence, so we'll remove some of those commas as well. But again, these are the policies that you've received with some changes. They'd be to the board next as action, but in the meantime, if there are any additional questions or edits, please let me know.
Mrs. Gotti.
So on 4430, is that the one that had the before this year and after this year?
Correct.
So I only have one question, and it might be for legal. Where it starts with A, are B, C, and D really subpoints under A? And is the last paragraph that starts a full-time certificated really B?
If Charles and Megan are here, then they can clarify.
I'm just trying to make sure, because I read it and I think, okay, they're all separate, but it seems like B, C, and D really fall under what happens with A. I'm not sure about that.
I think my reading of it is that it's all separate points under certificated employees. So the applicable dollar amount of the employee's unused sick leave shall be calculated at the following rate. And then another piece for certificated employees is 18 years. They have to be 18 years that's certified. So I would say that A, B, C, and D are separate under certificated employees, and A, B, C, and D are separate under classified employees.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out.
They're
A
all separate
applies to
requirements.
B, C, and D, correct? I mean, A is the way B, C, and D are calculated. Is that correct? Or
A-
are B, C,
I
and
would
D
say
not
A-
calculated that way?
They're all calculated. They're all calculated the same. B, C, and D are specific scenarios that may require us to respond differently. So, because if you look at B, it's if an employee dies, so
Right,
an
so-
employee death. If you look at C, it's
It's a less than
resignation.
10, and yeah.
Yeah.
So I was looking at B, C, and D as those specific scenarios where A is the calculation method, and so if you're giving specific scenarios, those scenarios fall under the calculation method. And then all of a sudden, we have this just little by itself paragraph here. How does it fall in? Because it's not calculated like A, so is it really a separate?
It is.
You know what I mean? Because
the-
you're not calculating it like A,
Absolutely.
correct?
We can certainly take your feedback and try to incorporate. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just, trying to figure out A and B and C and D are not the same. Okay, perfect, thanks.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Ray. Dr. Holman.
I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals to discuss with the superintendent, secretary to the board, and legal counsel, real estate, and legal advice.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to go into closed session by Dr. Holman, second by Ms. Ryan. Roll call, please.
Holman,
Aye.
Cracky,
Aye.
Perlman,
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Smith? Aye. Snipe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Cassidy?
Aye.
Got it.
Aye.
9-9.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for everybody that attended tonight's meeting. I move, let me remind the board that the purpose for closed session is for the protection of the public interest and for prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals, to discuss with the superintendent, secretary to the board, and legal counsel, real estate, and legal advice. Let the record reflect the board went into closed session at 8:30. Let the meeting reflect we came out of close at 9. Meeting's adjourned.
Great, thank you.
See you guys.